All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Sober Superstars. Today we've got Warren in the building. Woo! And that's where you put background of like people screaming, please and thank you. Anyway, we've got Warren in the building celebrating over 16 years sober now.
Yeah, over 16 years completely clean and sober, yeah.
From over 10 years of addiction to what?
To amphetamines, methamphetamine specifically, and alcohol in the end.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do me a favor real quick. What was the worst of it for you?
Yeah, I mean, the worst of it. So what it was like, drugs are fun and drugs make you feel good. If they didn't, people wouldn't do them. But that wears off after a while. And at the end, I was in my house. I didn't want to drink, but I had to drink. So I would go to the corner of the street because I knew I had to go to the liquor store. But then I'd get to the corner of the street and I'd think, man, I don't want to drink tonight. And so I'd turn around and I'd go back to my house. But then when I got to my house, I would think, man, I've got to drink tonight. I've got to get to the liquor store. And I'd go back to the corner of the street and I'd repeat the process over and over until eventually I'd end up at the liquor store. I'd buy a bottle. And if I had a little more money, I'd call my dealer and ask him to come over and hook up. Wow. And it was just, you want to live life free. You want to be able to make choices for yourself. And at the end of my addiction, there was just no choice. There was only one choice. Keep using, keep drinking.
That does not sound like freedom at all.
Well, it's not fun,
Right.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even fun anymore is what you're saying.
Totally. Yeah,
The fun was gone.
I would think that I would need to get high to clean the house, to have a good time, to party or whatever it was. And then I would get high and I would just be miserable and depressed.
Did you just say clean the house?
Yeah.
So you would have to get high just... That doesn't sound fun.
Oh, no. I'm not saying I would have to get high I would think I had to get high to clean the house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There's a big difference, guys. Big difference. Hey, let me go get high so I can clean my house. But that actually meth does that, right?
Yeah,
like it has a tweaking capability.
Totally. And
next thing you know, the house is spotless.
Totally. Well, your carpet's spotless.
Everything. Oh man, how many times did you go digging in the carpet?
A lot. Yeah.
I actually smoked a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have, and I have no clue what it was.
Totally. Probably
it looked like it.
Yep. Pieces of toast skin, pieces of donut, whatever it was. I know what hot glass tastes like. That's for sure.
Yeah. I've even gone all the way to toothpaste. I had to because it's just, oh man. But yeah, so that's crazy. And back and forth to the liquor store. But wait a second. Were you doing meth and alcohol at the same time during that same time?
Yeah, usually. So it wasn't always that way. When I started, I was just getting high on meth.
How'd you start?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was in school and I was in college. I started college when I was 16, graduated at 15, started college at 16. And, I wasn't.
Wait, did you just say you started college at 16?
Yeah.
So we got another you in here. Goodness gracious.
And I don't want to blame it on what I came out of. So just some history. So I'm the product of a teenage mother. I've never met my biological father. My extended family always judged me because I was born out of wedlock. And so being smart, having accomplishments, those things were very, very important. And so at school, I really pushed myself to exceed academically. And I did so well on my state standardized testing when I was 11, I got to take my ACTs and SATs that year.
Oh, wow.
And so I used that as a platform. I did pretty well. I did better than 25% of graduating seniors, which isn't.
Did you have a superiority complex?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think a lot of people who knew me,
I totally would have.
a lot of people who knew me would say that I would have, but in retrospect, I don't really think I did. But I use that as a platform to convince my parents to pull me out of school and homeschool me. And we found a correspondence course that I could take all my high school classes quickly and early. And I finished up real early because I wanted to start college. The goal was to have a bachelor's degree before I was 21.
Oh, wow. Did you accomplish it?
No.
Uh-oh.
No. So here I am, 16, going to college, and when you go to high school, you learn like there's different groups of people in high school, right? There's a group of people who is just buckling down. They want to get A's, or they're working really hard, running their drills, so they're excellent on the football team. And there's also other groups, people who don't want to be there but have to be there because their parents are forcing them, because they think that socially they have to accomplish this thing or whatever. And so,
Which one were you?
I tried to skirt between two groups. I tried to be the academically accomplished, but also hang out with the stoners and smokers at the corner, the people who weren't necessarily invested. And I don't like there's this phrase they say in the rooms, and it is, if you hang around in the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut.
Right.
And I don't, that doesn't always apply, and I don't necessarily like it, but in this case, it did apply.
I don't like it, but well, shoot, it happened.
It isn't always true, but in this case, it was
Right.
true. And so in college, I'm hanging out with the smokers, the people who don't really have a goal in life. Maybe it's just social, maybe it's to take a few classes, but they weren't buckling down and dedicated.
And you were younger than everybody else.
And I was basically younger than everybody else, yeah.
Were you easily manipulated, or
Yeah.
was it your choice?
Again, absolutely. I didn't have this social experience that a lot of people get in middle school and high school, where you learn to be your own person, where you learn to have your own goals. I just kind of went with whatever group. So here's the thing. So go back to that. I'm young and I need to accomplish something to feel value, right? So when you're sitting in a circle smoking weed with a bunch of people, right? Everyone is an equal. For the first time in my life, I was equal with the people that I was interacting with socially,
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's actually really deep. So I've never even heard that being phrased that way, but there was an equalizer from the drugs, the community on that, and it created an equalizer.
I finally had unity. I finally had community. I finally found a place where I could belong. The drug wasn't the problem at first, the lack of belonging in my family, the lack of belonging at church, the lack of belonging in all these other aspects of my life is what drove me to find a place where I could belong. And at college, with those people smoking weed on the hill, I could belong. I was finally somebody. And that's kind of where it all kicked off, and then you think, well, if this one thing's good, then this other thing might be better. And that's not true for everybody, but it was true for me.
Was it weed?
I mean, that started it all, yeah.
So
yeah.
It was your gateway too?
I mean, it was kind of, yeah. I mean,
all those phraseologies that you're like, I don't like those.
Yeah. Weed isn't a gateway drug. Well, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is.
And sometimes it absolutely is.
Yeah.
But the belonging was actually the gateway for you.
Yeah, totally.
The sense of belonging and needing a community and people.
Yeah, needing unity and just having knowing that I had value. Some people finally showed me that I had value, that I had worth, that what I said was worth something. So, I mean, that's kind of where it all started.
How fast did it escalate?
Oh, man. Yeah, it was within a couple of semesters. So, I mean, I was smoking weed and drinking on campus, going to classes, and I was still getting A's and B's, no problem.
Oh, geez. Nice job.
Yeah, thanks. It's not an accomplishment, but it is what it is. And so, I heard people would ask me, I think just because of my personality type, they would be like, do you smoke meth, dude? Do you do coke, dude? And I was like, no, but it's weird. Those kind of benign questions got me curious about it.
Wait a second. How does somebody even randomly, benignly ask, hey, do you do meth? I mean, coke I've heard, right? Because coke is
super
social.
social.
Party drug.
Yeah, and it has
meth
been.
is not a social party drug unless it was in your area.
I mean, I think...
Was this Wisconsin?
No. But at this time, in the community, in the suburbs, the rave scene was huge.
Meth was huge
in the rave scene, and MDMA was huge in the rave scene too. And people would just talk about them. If you when I was young, I accidentally stumbled onto a house party one night, and the people invited me in and offered me X, and it was a thing. Which is totally weird, because you would think people doing drugs should be paranoid, right? But they weren't.
Well, ecstasy, I think definitely diluted paranoia. Hence the touchy-feely, hence the connectivity.
That's true.
It definitely opened up, hey, love, 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 because, I mean, we did so much X, too, but that wasn't my drug of choice. Meth was definitely my drug of choice. For some reason, it triggered something in me that I needed.
Totally.
And filled for me in the sense of the way my brain functions work.
Yeah.
And so I was super duper addicted to it. Like, I mean, I couldn't live without it, period.
Again, in the culture that I came from, I think that meth was just so commonplace. The party scene and the rave scene was just huge. And I think it was part of that. And so people were just willing to talk about it. They weren't willing to talk about how to get it or how to manufacture it, but they were willing to talk about its use. And so it got me curious. I did a bunch of research because that's the type of person that I was.
You researched this
Yeah.
and then did this shit?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know,
Bro, that's on some next level. I don't even know where to go from there, but I love these experiences. Let's go.
I had a girlfriend who was a meth addict before I had ever tried meth, and had been with her for some time, you know, at least 6 months. Again, was curious about it. The first time I ever used, I was on the fourth story of a parking garage with a backpack full of weed, and some dude cut some lines up. We were in the wind tunnel in the stairwell, and I did a line, and not even 10 seconds later, the cops rolled up, and I ran down 2 flights of stairs and jumped off the second story of a parking garage. And I bruised both my ankles. I walked away from it, but I walked funny for probably 6 months while my ankles healed, you know. I mean, so like you hear all the stories on the street of people picking themselves open and being crazy and stuff like that. But then I read these stories about people who, oh, it'll help me study. Oh, it'll help me pass classes. And I thought, like, so here's my situation. I'm living with friends. I have to pay rent. I'm basically either working or going to school 100% of my available time.
Right.
And my friends who aren't taking school as seriously are like going out and playing video games at the cyber cafe or partying or whatever. And I felt like I was missing something in my life. And I was missing something. But the solution, I thought, was, hey, I just don't need to sleep anymore. If I do meth all the time, I can study, go to school, work, and party, and have all of these areas of my life fulfilled.
Longest you were up?
Oh my gosh, over 2 weeks, easily. Like just absolutely nuts. And that, not right away, but after years of use, yeah, easily, over 2 weeks. Yeah, just, and you know, there's shadow people everywhere. You know what's really scary about shadow people? Not when they're there, it's when they turn to look at you, you know.
Oh. You and my friend Bobby Bonds experienced shadow people. I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. I stayed up till 7 days. 7 days was the longest, and I thought I was crazy. And I saw towel folds speaking to me.
Totally.
So
totally.
that was my extent, and I was like, I need sleep.
Yeah, you're right on the verge.
Yeah. So that was the verge of shadow people.
I mean, yeah. I mean, so you know, stimulant psychosis is what causes that. It develops in you over time, and people who, you know, go long periods of time and start seeing shadow people, eventually the days being up required to see shadow people shorten and shorten and shorten until basically as soon as they get high, they're crazy and they see shadow people.
That's where my friend Bobby was.
Yeah. And it's sad, and it's sad because, you know, I knew I was nuts, but I couldn't do anything to stop it because the drugs were the only thing I had left.
So I'm going to dive real deep into a whole different spectrum with you here because shadow people, fake psychosis or based on everything you know now, real. I
mean, here's the thing. I believe in the supernatural. You know, I believe there's something outside of this natural world that we can observe. I believe in a higher power, right? And so is it possible that shadow people are a manifestation of something supernatural? Yeah, it's possible in my opinion. But also, knowing that taking a substance will make you see things that aren't there, hallucinating is very real. I think that's a much stronger argument.
Well, like, for example, I get manifestations based on your thing.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't manifest this. This is here, though.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So did it exist or not?
Oh, yeah, it does
Outside
exist.
of you.
Outside of me. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'm not going to I don't want to feed into the paranoia bias at all, because I know there are a lot of people that say like meth is evil and, the people who do meth are evil. And I don't believe that's necessarily inherently true.
Right.
And so those people like to jump on the bandwagon that shadow people are the manifestation of the evil around us or maybe the evil in our hearts. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Amphetamine is prescribed to some people who absolutely need it, to maintain their life.
Right.
And so, but am I one of those people? Absolutely not. I abused it to the point where I caused brain damage.
Me too.
Me
too.
And so,
absolutely so.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is, right? So the reason why I'm talking about it and really poking into it is not to give it power.
No.
But to really show the drastic power. Like, for example, do you experience those shadow people now?
No.
So,
no.
But do they still exist? I have a feeling they do, but due to God's grace,
yeah,
you don't experience it.
I don't. But I also get plenty of sleep nowadays, and that makes a big difference.
I love it. I love it. To me, I feel like it's God's grace in all of it, right? Like, and
totally. So, we haven't gotten into all the depths of my story, but for me in my recovery, every day is a miracle. I'm the type of addict. I'm the type of alcoholic. I have to drink or use every day. There was every day when I was in active addiction, nothing was going to stop me from drinking or using. No, having money wasn't going to stop me. Not having money wasn't going to stop me. Having a good day wasn't going to stop me. Having a bad day wasn't going to stop me. I drank or used every day. Now, the first time I ever went to a 12-step meeting, a miracle happened. That night, I didn't have to drink or use. Did I drink or use again? Yes. But I felt the power of God, the power of my higher power in my life that night. And that was an absolute miracle. And today, because I've worked the 12-step program, because I practice the principles in my life, because I regularly go to meetings, not necessarily because I need something, but because I contribute something. I pack joy into this world. I pack kindness into this world because I'm contributing something. Because I do these things, I am free today, every day. And again, every day is a miracle. Do I still think about drinking and using? Absolutely. And
You do?
Oh man, yeah. 16 years later, and do I still dream about using? Yeah, some nights I do. I know a lot of people in early recovery are really worried that the dreams aren't going to go away, that the obsession to use isn't going to go away. And I hate to say this, but it's still there in some respect for me. That's not true for everybody. But
I have none.
That's great. And that's great. But, the power that I've been given, the power that I have, the power that comes from my higher power, I use that to stay clean in spite of that temptation.
Exactly.
Like I was super into the manufacture of methamphetamines locally. And so I know how to make it. That's just part and parcel. Yeah, why didn't you?
Sorry.
Things would have been so much easier.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I would have just funded you.
That's what I thought too, but
that did not go well.
So I know how to cook dope, and is it a temptation to do that someday? Yeah, I guess it is, but I choose not to do it because what I have today is so much better than what I had then.
Ooh, perfect segue. What do you have today? Share that.
That's the thing. You want to build a life. You want to build a life in recovery that's so good that you don't have to drink or use. So I know a lot of people in early recovery are worried because their life is just so terrible and they feel just so awful and they feel like they've got brain damage that they'll never recover from. And it took me a couple of years, but my brain was at working capacity, probably 100, maybe 110% after a couple of years. When you're using, things are always getting progressively worse. But when you stop using, when you abstain, things can get progressively better. And that's the distinction. If you use, things are absolutely going to get worse. But if you stop using, if you get a program, if you just work on yourself, things can get better. And they usually do. And so, let's talk about what happened. So here I am on the corner trying not to go to the liquor store, but going to the liquor store, sometimes calling my dealer afterwards. And I was on they had me on Antabuse because I had a couple of DUIs, and I learned how to drink on Antabuse. So I was drinking I was drinking a handle of Skol every night just to get to bed. You know, why? I don't know. There was some sort of crazy obsession. Maybe I felt bad for the things that I had done. You know, maybe I was just so wound up. Maybe I was just so used to blacking out that I didn't know how to sleep naturally anymore. But I'm drinking a handle of Skol every night just to get to bed. And I've got a PO and I've got to meet with her. And so
How'd that go?
not super well. So I'm on Antabuse and I'm showing up to appointments with my probation officer, still blowing like 0.01, 0.02, 10 hours after I stopped drinking. I was drinking fatal amounts of alcohol every night. And needless to say, she wasn't very happy.
No.
And
no.
the first time she called an ambulance on me, and I was, I was so broke I refused them because, it's just part and parcel. Every night I was drinking this amount. I don't know why they were surprised. But the second time she told me that, I had to go to rehab. And she found a facility,
that would take you?
That would take me, yeah. So there's these Salvation Army facilities. They're a 6-month program. You have to work for the Salvation Army when you're there. They're called the Salvation Army ARC programs. And they have a lot of problems. There's religious indoctrination there. They suggest, but they don't demand that you adhere to Christianity. You have to go to like church services and stuff, and you have to work for them, and you have to go to Bible study. There's a bunch of crazy rules that you have to follow. That's very hard to do when you've been living on the street or
Right.
living on your own, and is discipline there always fair? Absolutely not. So it has problems, but it's also a very, very good program. It's a 6-month program. It's totally free. You live there. You work for them. They feed you your meals. They get you the therapy you need. They send you to 12-step programs. And it's a safe haven.
But you had to show up and do the work.
You have to show up and do the work. Yeah, absolutely. But it is a safe haven. And for me, it was a very, very effective program. It was exactly what I needed. I was sick of wetting the bed every night. And I was ready to do whatever it was going to take to get better. And so when I walked in that gate, the miracle kind of completed in a sense for me. I haven't had to drink or use since I walked in that gate. And
this was after you were forced to go to rehab?
Yeah. So I was forced to go to rehab. I only went to one rehab. So, and that's another thing, like, a lot of people new in recovery are worried about relapses. And like, are relapses something to be concerned about? Absolutely. Absolutely. I never got a relapse because I could never get a day clean. That was just me. And I was ready when I got to that rehab, again, to do whatever it was going to take. So, but if you're new in recovery and you're worried about relapses, you had a relapse, don't freak out about it. Just, throw the bag away, dump the bottle out, get back on the horse, get back to therapy, get back to 12-step groups, get back to church, get back to doing whatever you're doing. Because again, like, the best years of your life are ahead of you, and there's no reason to be wasting time drinking or using. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so, I'm sorry. So what was your previous question?
I don't either.
That's okay.
I'm literally loving this story. I
Yeah.
love, I see a lot of the similarities too.
Yeah.
In the areas, but also some really unique nuances and differences that make it super awesome to see how everybody's addiction story is so different. But now, okay, so tell me about the life now.
Hold on. No, a little bit more.
Oh,
So,
more.
No,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
By all means, lead into it.
So I'm a member of several 12-step fellowships, and I believe strongly in the 12-step recovery program. It's not for everybody, but for me, it was super effective. One thing I heard recently was, for the medicine to work, you have to believe in the medicine. And I think that's really true. And, a lot of people get hung up on this idea about God. And my sponsor is an atheist.
Oh, wow.
Totally an atheist. But when I have a problem, and I'll call him, he will give me the most Christian advice I have ever heard. Like
I love that.
pastors and friends from church will be like, oh, and just BS me. But my sponsor will say, you might not understand what you're going through right now, but everything happens for a reason. Just, stay on the boat, hold on tight, white knuckle it through the season if you have to. I'm here if you need somebody to call. But, like that, and that's Christian advice, right? Everything in its season. There's a reason this is happening. God knows it, you might not know it, and that's okay. You can make it through,
Wow.
And so again, I believe in the 12-step fellowships, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a believer, whether you just don't know. I really like them, especially in later recovery, because when I was first in recovery, I had a really solid idea about what I thought God was and what I believed, which was very, very different from all of my peers who were just coming into it, who kind of don't have an idea. But as I've like grown spiritually, as I've grown in my faith, I feel like the more you know you don't know, And so I feel this 12-step program is so great because it allows for that. If I told my pastor that I was having doubts, he might judge me. He might treat me differently. But if I tell someone in the fellowship that I'm having doubts, they'll be beside me. They'll help walk me through it. They'll tell me stories about their own life where they went through seasons of doubt and how they came out of it. There's always support there, no matter what level you're at. And so again, that first time I ever went to a meeting, there was something supernatural that happened. And as I continue to go to 12-step meetings, the supernatural thing continues to happen.
That's awesome.
So where are we at now?
Tell me. Yeah, tell me.
I mean, my life is so wildly different than anything I could have ever hoped or imagined. Okay. Here we go. So I'm in rehab, right? I graduated the program, and at the rehab, like we're talking a rehab facility with 100 men, right? Like most of them just came off the street. We're all sick people, in a sense, spiritually sick. We all have ideas about how the world works that might not be exactly healthy, right? And so the rule in the facility was the unspoken rule. If you left some stuff sitting around, it was fair game to take. That's pretty much the rule. You kept your stuff. You kept your stuff locked up if you wanted to keep it, and if you left it sitting around, it got took, and that was the deal. So, is that right? No, but it's how it was.
And it eliminates the hardship of somebody stealing from you.
I mean,
it was fair game.
It's fair game, right? Yeah. So anyway, I graduated. I was still living there because they had a great aftercare program. And someone left a backpack out, and the backpack had a $1 bill, some dryer sheets, and a Steelers watch. And now at the facility, you have to keep an inventory of all your personal items. So I knew I couldn't take the watch. So I took the $1 bill and the dryer sheets, right? Now listen, I'm allergic to dryer sheets. I don't like them. I don't like the way they smell, and they make me break out. So I'm not even going to use them. But I'm a sick person, right? And so you just take whatever's sitting around, and that's the life you live, right? As an addict. And I'm only, another thing about the program, it's a 6-month program, and I'm only, 6 months into my sobriety. I have a lot to learn. So I took this stuff. Well, somebody else took the watch, and they locked the house down, put the house on lockdown. Do you know what that is? No one can leave. No one can make any calls.
Wow, no.
And and they told everybody whose stuff it was. Now, I had been working the program with my sponsor and had a little inkling about personal responsibility, right? And I felt conviction, right? I felt, it is what I'm, and I don't want to say it's from the Holy Spirit, but dude, probably from the Holy Spirit, right? I felt like if I wanted to be free, I couldn't live like this anymore. And the 12-step program has a great method for making amends to people. And I felt I was overcome with the desire and the feeling of importance that I needed to go to this person and be honest with them about what I had done and give them their stuff back, restoration, right? And so the thing was, me and this person had never got along. And taking someone else's stuff is absolutely against the rules. and would have gotten me kicked out. And I was I was at the end of my program. And by the time you're at the end of your program in this facility, you have a level of authority. So me and this person had never got along. He had never agreed with me. And I knew he was going to tell on me. And is that right? Yeah. And I don't fault him for that, because what he did was absolutely right. We need to hold each other accountable. Absolutely. And so I knew all of this was going to happen before I even went and talked to him. And I was like, God, if you want me to live right, you're going to have to take care of me. I have no plan after this, but I trust you to take care of me. And so so I went to the guy, gave him his stuff back, told him I was sorry, went to a meeting. They called me out of the meeting into the office, and I told him that I did take the guy's stuff, but I gave him his stuff back and I made an amends to him. And they said, Warren, that sounds really good. Don't go anywhere. And, they met and they decided to kick me out.
Wow.
And that was fine. I was comfortable at that facility, and the timing was perfect because God used it to push me into a new season. Right. And was that season easy? No. There was a guy that I know for a long time, and I just really appreciate his heart, who had told me, hey, when you leave the facility, if you need a place to stay, let me know. And I didn't want to move back in with my mom because that was kind of a toxic environment at the time.
Too many memories there, or
and just I needed to be around a different set of people with different ideologies. And so I feel like, in retrospect, I feel like she might have supported me too much when I needed to get out on my own also. So a little bit of enabling, a little bit of memories, a little bit of some other reasons. And so I just thought living with this guy would be better. And, as I got kicked out of the facility, I had to stand across the street from the facility because I wasn't allowed on the grounds, and somebody came out and let me use a cell phone. So I called this guy and he came and picked me up, and so much of the justice system when it comes to DUIs and drug use, beats the addict down. Right. Like, for example, if you get in a DUI, your car gets towed to one of these predatory tow lots where you have to pay $400 to get it out of the lot. And if your tire's flat, you have to pay them to fix your tire. And it's $75 for every day that you're there. And so it makes it almost impossible to get your car back, right? And all of DUI legislation and the justice system involving GUIs is based around restriction rather than reincorporation. The system isn't built to help a drunk get sober. It's built to prevent a drunk from driving drunk again. Right. And so this guy who let me stay with him was just so kind and so caring. He took me to a plasma donation center so I could get $20-$40 or whatever to buy ramen so that I could have food to eat for the week, and did stuff like that, and just let me stay with him rent free for several months while I got back on my feet. Which would have been absolutely impossible if I had been on my own, if I hadn't had any family or friends,
So you say, God, if I go do this right now, this craziness that's more than likely going to get me kicked out and everything like that, repercussions, but I need to live a life free from this kind of thing and having a whole different conviction of, God, you got me and God got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
He took care of me, and not just in that way. So this guy helped me out, but also, I needed a job, and there were these guys who just started a branch, in this area at the church I was going to. And they were like, do you want a job? And I was like, no, I want to join the military. And the military wouldn't take me because I was still on paper. So I thought, well, I'll do this thing till something better comes along. My wife and we bought that business in 2014, and it's my main source of income. I was the first employee in Colorado, and now we own the business, and so, that only happened because the timing was perfect for me leaving the facility. When
you might still be at the facility.
I might. So there was this big church conference that a bunch of my church friends were going to, that we went to that year.
Which one?
New
Attitude?
Yeah, it was New Attitude Conference.
Me too.
And so when I'm at the facility, let's jump back a little bit. I'm at the facility. I call this female friend of mine, right? And I'm talking to her on the phone, and dude, I'm living a new life. I am finally ready to start making serious relationships. So I'm on the lookout everywhere for that, right? And back in my mind, maybe this girl is interested in a relationship. And she tells me, no joking, on the phone, every time a man asks me out, I want to barf in his shoes. So I thought, thank God, clear signal. This girl is not interested in a relationship at all. Well, we go to this church conference, right? After the church conference, she tells me, I've been having feelings for you, and I've been asking God to take those feelings away, and he hasn't, and I think this is something we should pursue. And that woman, is the woman I married. So the first job I got after I got kicked out of rehab was, the job that I own today. The first relationship I got into after I got kicked out of rehab was the woman I married.
How long did you wait before you actually got into a relationship?
I mean, my whole using career, because it was toxic, but it was probably 3 months after I got out of rehab. Uh-huh. So in the 12-step fellowships, they have a rule.
Right.
And that is like, hey, the first year it's don't get into a relationship.
You did 9 months.
I did 9 months.
You did 9 months.
But I had the blessing of my sponsor. I talked to him.
Wow,
I talked to him and I said, she called me and told me that. And I said, not really interested right now, but let me think about it. Hung up, called my sponsor, told him. Oh, wow. And he said, hey dude, you're working your program. This girl knows you. She knew you before you got sober, and she knows you now being sober, and you're sticking to your sobriety. He said, go with it, and call me if there's trouble.
She knew you before that throughout?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So my wife was like the lead greeter, and she needed other greeters, right? And so she asked me to be a greeter when I was still using, and I said yes, which was dumb all around in retrospect. And one day when I was supposed to be greeting, I showed up hungover out of my mind. Gosh. And people were asking, I mean, that's just to illustrate, that's the level I was at. Right. I wasn't even smart enough to stay home from church when I was hungover. I would still go to church, but I needed it. Yeah, and it was obvious. Yeah. So again, so this one instance, I trusted God. Maybe that's the only time I've ever trusted God completely and fully. When I did the right thing by giving that guy his stuff back, and I trusted God to take care of me. And I have all of these blessings in my life stem from that one, culturing that seed that one time. Everything I have today is because I trusted God.
And you continue to do so.
I mean, I do.
So okay. What do you mean? I mean, maybe.
Here's the thing. If you're considering rehab, it can be one of the most amazing and influential times in your life. It can totally be worth it. That program was a 6-month program, which is 6 times longer than most rehabilitation facilities. Right. But that 6 months was so influential in my life, and during that time, I absolutely felt I felt his presence. I felt that he was pleased with what I was doing. In John, Jesus says, this is eternal life, that you know the Father. And I can say for sure that during my stint in rehab, I absolutely knew the Father. I felt his presence close to me. I felt that he was pleased with what I was doing with my life. And
even in the midst of that.
Even in the midst of still being toxic and just having barely any clean time and not having it all figured out and not being a perfect guy and, whatever. God was there and I could feel him. Do I feel that today? No. And is that sad? Yeah, it kind of is. But that was just such an amazing high, and it is so influential. And I don't want to discount that by saying I don't necessarily feel it every day now. Do I still feel God's presence? A lot of times, yes, but not with the intensity. But what's that verse? It says that the angels celebrate over the repentant. Right. Yeah, there's more celebrating in heaven over one repentant soul than a man who keeps his righteousness. Right. And I think that's absolutely true in my life. So I don't want to diminish what's going on in my life.
No, it's a great life.
Yeah,
it's a great life. It's not a huge degree of transition. Yeah. I mean, you went from absolute hell to an experience of an open heaven. Yeah. At that point.
Absolutely.
Know what I mean? So
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Until you die.
Yeah.
And go to heaven.
By God's grace. Yeah. I will still live in this.
You're probably not going to experience that level again.
I hope I never do. And that's another reason to stay clean and sober, right? Like, because I know, like, with all that I've gone through, with all that I went through, it was just so terrible. And again, like, I have built a life that is so good today. Like, when I think about drinking or using, I just think about, like, what I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my wife. I'm going to lose my family, the mother of my children and a relationship with my children, I'm very comfortable today. And not in a bad way, like in a good way. Like, I've fought to have like a couch and a mattress, and I like those things, and they're great because I know what it's like.
I like those things.
I know what it's like to not have, a mattress to sleep on. I know what it's like to sleep in my car,
Fair.
And so, it's just, I built a life that I love today, and I want to keep living it, and by the grace of God, by God's power, I'm gonna stay true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brady anyway, the connection too. Look at this. Look at what this is.
That's
This
tight,
is
bro.
So good sober.
Dude, that's it, dude.
So good sober. He too has built a life that is so good in his sobriety. And this is his company. And one of his companies, he also owns High Country 4x4 and is crushing it. That he did an interview with us. But yeah, built a life so good. How hard was it though in the beginning, or was it just miracle after miracle then that was happening?
So, it was miracle after miracle, but I don't want to discount those miracles. Were the work, they were the care of people around me. Right. So, the church community that I had when I first got out of rehab was super healthy and super loving and just took me in. They had kind of seen what I had been going through, but didn't know the full depth of it. But they were 100% behind me and supported me when I got out of rehab. Like pastors and church administrators, like they don't know what to do with a drunk. They don't know what to do with a meth addict. Right. And I understand that. And that's a good reason for like parachurch organizations like the 12-step rooms, like rehabilitation facilities that are spirituality based. But when I got out, there were just practical ways that they helped me. So this guy let me stay in with him. That was one super important way. And he didn't do it without reservation. If I had messed around at all, he was going to kick me out. And I told him that was totally fine, that was totally on the board. We established rules and we established boundaries, and I stuck by those rules and boundaries.
Rules and boundaries definitely help in your steps to addiction.
Yeah.
I mean, sobriety.
Sobriety. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so there was that level of support, but then there was also there was a family who had like an extra car that they didn't need. And again, like the system isn't built to rehabilitate an alcoholic with a DUI, and so there were just so many blocks in the way of me getting a car. And so I was riding my bike, I don't know, like 4, 5, 7 miles, in like.
Is that how you got so jacked?
Yeah, bro, that's part of it. I still I don't ride my bike in that cold of weather, but I do ride my bike still.
How did you get so jacked?
Bro, work out, dude. You got to.
I work out a lot. How did you get so jacked?
The trick to working out is you have to lift weights you almost can't lift.
Goodness gracious, bro. Like you got jacked.
So anyway, this couple, they had a car. They said they were just going to give it to me, no strings attached. But, I had to get insurance, and I had to you have to schedule a driving date. You have to schedule to get an interlock in your car. Mm-hmm. And all of those things are things you can't do alone. You have to do with someone willing who has a license so they can drive the car around, so they can drive it to the interlock place, because you can't drive it before you have a license, before you have an interlock on it. That's another huge criminal offense that I just did not have time to deal with or the money to deal with. And so
good choices.
I mean, making better choices. Good little choices. Yeah. What do they say? Do the next right thing. Right. Because the right thing is to steal a car, but the next right thing is
the right thing is, which I did get. Yeah. Literally, it's the only thing I ever got caught doing,
bro.
Out of all the crazy stuff, the only thing I got caught doing was stealing a car, and literally the only reason I stole it was so I could go get drugs. I wasn't even planning on stealing it. I was just borrowing.
You're just borrowing it. Yeah,
I was just borrowing it. Like to this day, I did not want to steal it. I didn't want the car. I just needed it to get from Edison to Jersey City so that I could pick up.
Bro.
That was it. Unfortunately, I stole it from in front of a Dunkin' Donuts and never made it out of the parking lot because there was a lot of cops there. I didn't think. I wasn't thinking.
Of
There was
course
a lot of cops there. So
That's hilarious.
That was bad.
But yeah. So, I mean, those people helped me so that's a huge part of my recovery. And I think it's a really important part for people who aren't necessarily in recovery, but are recovery adjacent, the family or friends. Like if someone is doing the right things, if they're staying sober, if they're going to meetings, if they're working their program, if they're going to their therapist, whatever it is, they need outside support because the judicial system is just not built to help get these people back into society. And so it took this wonderful, loving church community to feed me sometimes, to help me get a car, to give me a place to live, which were all super essential things in early recovery.
The crazy thing is, though, a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are probably going to be, number one, jealous that you had those people fall in line for yours and the miracles that came into play, right? And a lot of them are going to be like, well, I don't have somebody that would do that. I don't have this person. I don't have a family. My family hates me and everything like that. One thing I really want to share, right, is this. Start doing the right decisions and really continue to do the right decisions, even through the struggles and everything like that. And those things will fall into place. It won't look the same as what it did for Warren. But it's impossible that it won't work that way for you. You will literally bring it to you, but you have to choose to make those right decisions, even if it's as scary as getting kicked out. You got kicked out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so anybody out there be like, this is all I have right now. But it was the wrong decision for you to stay in that level of
comfort. I could have lied. I could have said that I didn't take anything. I didn't have to tell anybody.
Right, but you'd be out of integrity. You wouldn't even be living your true self.
That's right. Yeah.
And until you do live your true self, these miracles don't happen.
Yeah,
guys, like they really don't. The only thing that happens from lies is more negativity, more lies, and that just keeps piling on. But when you actually take a stand and make a real decision to make a change in your life, and for me especially, ask God for help. Right? And be like, God, you need to take this. Like, I actually have a very similar thing. For me, when I moved out here, and I remember Travis and Andrew Jones and a bunch of the people from church were coming to talk to me and everything like that, I literally was like, God, I just want to be left alone. I was in my crash. I just want to be left alone. Why are these people praying over me and laying their hands on me? This is such nonsense. Why are you doing this? But I was like, God, I don't even know if you exist or who you are. But if you truly exist, you're going to need to take this from me, or I'm going back to Jersey and I'm killing myself. And on the seventh day, he took it from me. He literally took it from me. But I had to ask and I had to make the right decision. Like moving all the way out here, not knowing what the heck was going on, was the right decision. When Raul told me that I had to live with Stephen Duncan for a little bit, and I was pretty much like, who is this guy willing to take me in, knowing the situation and everything like that? Meanwhile, Stephen was like, if he acts up, I'm gonna shoot him. In my head, it was like, who is this man that loves God enough, willing to take me in, knowing everything about me? Because they gave him the precursor.
Totally, yeah.
They told him
it's only right. It's only right.
And he was a single dude back then, and he was like, you know what? I'll take him in. Didn't realize that he was ready to shoot me if needed. But I was in such a state of, God, what are you doing in my life? Thank you so much for these miracles and opportunities. And I wanted to make the next right decisions. Now, don't get it twisted. It's not like I didn't make mistakes. I've made 1,000 mistakes in my 18 years of sobriety. 1,000 of them. But when I knew the right decision, the next right decision versus the really wrong decision, I did choose the right decision, right? I always have to choose the right decision right now because I want to build a life that's so good, sober, that I don't go back to I don't ever want to go back to that. And coming to what you said, like having the dreams, last dreams I had was 3 years ago.
Good. Praise God, dude.
Yeah. And the way that God used it for me, though, was it would be like a 3-month stint in my dream, 2-month, 3-month stint, right? And in my dream, all of this would happen, like the timeline of 3 months, where out of nowhere, something bad happened. And for some reason, I meet somebody and they were like, hey, you want to You know what I mean? And I'd be like, I don't really need to, but sure, we should probably. And then I'd start, and then I'd start hiding it, and then I'd start doing it in the closet. And then it'd get all the way to the point where I lost my wife, and I lost my family, and I lost my house, and I lost my job, and everything like that. And I would wake up in a panic, sweating. And when I woke up, I literally felt like I just woke up from finally falling asleep doing it, and then waking up, and like, why did I ruin my life? Why did I, wait a second, this is my bed.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that was another dream. And that was literally one of God's ways of keeping me like, hey, you sure you want to think about drugs again? No, I'm done. I'm good. And that got me super strong again and got me on a new motivated run. And it's been that way. And now I truly know that I have freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. You know, sometimes the dreams can be useful in that.
Right.
They show you the level of your heart.
Yeah.
You know, you need to know you're like, I'm just going to work harder to be sober now. And that's great. If the dreams motivate you to do that, they're healthy, right?
My first ones weren't that.
No, of course not.
Have you heard of suicides in a basketball court? You know what suicides are?
No. What's a suicide?
So it's like a training method where you start from the baseline, you run to the foul line, you run back
and
then
forth,
you run to the half court line, then you run back, then you run to the other foul line, run back, and then you run all the way to the court and then run back.
Yeah.
My first dreams were lines of coke.
Yeah, suicide lines of coke.
All the way, and I would literally have standing straws, and I would run back and forth through this. Those were my first dreams.
Totally.
Of missing it.
I mean, and that spoke to your level of dedication at the time, right? Yeah.
It was like bad. But those were my first dreams of me missing it. And in the beginning, I actually used to literally plan this out. I was like, okay, I'm in my stage of sobriety now. This is probably year 3 or 4. And I'm like, I have to keep making these right decisions. I'm building an amazing life for me, right? But I do miss the drugs. Yeah. So I would sit there and say to myself, I was like, you know what? One day, when I have no more obligations, after kids are grown, out to school, living their lives, married and everything like that, and everything's paid for and everything's handled, I'm going to retire. And by retirement, I'm going to buy a barrel full of meth. Like an absolute barrel, like an oil barrel.
Totally.
Filled.
Totally. Breaking Bad style, the whole thing.
Exactly, the whole thing. And just create my room that had all of the fun things that I did. Like some of the few things that I really enjoyed when I was doing meth was playing darts.
Okay.
Playing pool.
Okay.
Playing cards.
Yeah.
So I would have a top room with all of that. What I realized was through the years, I have built a life so freaking good that life would be going way backwards now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not what you made it all in your mind, right? You know, and that's great. That's transformation, right? That is supernatural transformation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you and me, we were people who were dedicated to death, right?
Yeah.
And now we're dedicated to life.
Good life.
So
Such a
good,
good life, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, you are absolutely right. Super dedicated to life.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, that's the point of this podcast. Like, I want to share this with so many people because, man, I have some really, really close friends that I love to this day that aren't finding their way out and have tried over and over and over again. And the first reason why I wanted to start this was because I realized I didn't have the answers for him, even though I thought I did. I mean, he's done everything from rehabs to everything, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to interview a bunch of sober people that are crushing it in life and absolutely loving life and figure out what the heck they did to figure out all the different keys to freedom. And I'm going to share all of these keys to freedom to every single person out there that wants to listen or really wants to have freedom. And if something you say hits, how amazing.
Yeah, great.
If somebody else I interview says hits, how amazing.
Yeah.
If something I say hits, how amazing.
Yeah.
And literally, if this podcast changes one person's life,
bro, it's 100% worth every minute of work.
All of it.
Yeah.
Every cost, every investment, everything we're doing.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yep.
And that joy is beyond. Like, that changes everything. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you then, because I feel like I caught what it was, but I want you to share it. If you were to say, what was your key to freedom?
Yeah.
In this whole thing, there might be a few of them.
I mean,
what would you say would be the number one key to freedom that you discovered in your trajectory from addiction to a so good sober life.
Totally. So, I mean, and I already mentioned it, it's really pivotal, but it was just the willingness to do whatever it was going to take when I walked in the gates of the rehab facility. And like, there's one 12-step fellowship who says you don't want to have any reservations. And that just means like, you don't want to have any excuse to use, no excuse to drink or use left in your mind. And they make it out to be super important. And I don't know if I feel like that's super important again, but in my life that it's proven to be very, very important, because when I got to the rehabilitation facility, I was just sick of living the life the way I had been living it. I had nothing. I was going nowhere. I felt like I was meant for so much more, but I could not figure out how to make it work. But I was willing to do whatever it was going to take. And then I went in that gate, got in the program, and the rest is history. Again, because I haven't had to drink or use since that day, back in 2008. Yeah. So that's what it is. The willingness is what's important.
What's your sobriety date again?
My sobriety date is September 29th, 2008.
92908. That's awesome. Mine's 10/6/2006.
Nice. You got some time, bro.
I'm a little older than you.
Yeah, whatever. We can both drive now, though. So yeah.
That's really good. I love that. Depends what state you're in.
That's true, I guess.
I'm an adult now. It's about 18 years in a couple months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But man, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else you want to share with everybody?
Yeah,
before we
so like being a dinosaur in recovery, like comes with benefits, right? There's a lot more stability, and you just, in early sobriety, you're worried about every day. Again, you're worried about if your brain's going to fix itself. And like, I would just say, be assured that your brain is going to fix itself. But it just takes time. And it takes
real quick, fix itself.
Yeah.
I promise you, if you go through this road, it's more than just fix yourself. You will be able to innovate on things that most people have never experienced or seen ever. Yeah. And if you can connect those dots to a life in society where you could take everything that you learned in your craziest, hardest experiences and put it into this, you'll be unstoppable.
Totally. And that's why I said at 2 years, I was like 110% of myself. I was approved and up on, better than I had ever been before. And I've got 16 years. I just took my first math class in college. I'm back in college, thank God. I just took my first math class I had taken in 20 years. It's a pre-calc class, and oh my God, it was the hardest class I've ever taken. But I got an A in it. I buckled down, I dedicated myself to it, I figured it out, and I got an A. I put in the work and I got the reward. And that's what it's about.
I love that. You put in the work and you get the reward.
But just as long-term recovery. So it doesn't happen for everybody, but for me, a lot of what was going on in my drinking and using was I was trying to treat my own mental illness, and when I first got sober, the symptoms of my mental illness were really, really small. It wasn't there very much, and I could manage my life. But as I got older, my mental illness grew. And I tried to use the fellowship, the 12-step fellowship, to address my mental illness. And the 12-step fellowship is an excellent system for combating addiction and alcoholism, but it's not a good system to fight mental illness. And so I also tried to use church to combat my mental illness. You just need to pray more. You just need to read your Bible more. Okay. And but I found that might work for some people, but it wasn't true in my life. I needed.
So this one was the not true.
This one was the not true.
Confirmed.
So I needed medical intervention, and I met with a doctor, and I got a prescription, and I got the blessing of my sponsor, because it's not a controlled substance. It's nothing I've ever abused before, and I take my medicine regularly, and I'm not crazy. I was out of line, angry all the time, couldn't figure out why, couldn't pray it away, couldn't work, couldn't 12-step it away, could not figure out what was going on. And you know what? I just needed to meet with a doctor and a therapist and work through some things and take my medicine. And now I'm back to being, a loving and caring husband, and so if mental illness is part of your story, and you're worried about how that's all going to work. Like, you don't have to figure it all out right away, but, consider seeking medical professional help, because that can be an important part of people's recovery journey too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not just white knuckle it through.
No, don't
seek the professional help
Don't
that you
don't be
need.
miserable. If you think you're being miserable for whatever reason, like, try everything to figure it out. If doctors aren't the first step for you, if they're the fifth step for you, that's fine. Go through your other 4 steps first. Be convinced that they're going to help. And in the same respect, if a doctor prescribes you something that isn't helping you, talk to your doctor about stopping and taking it. You don't have to be a slave to whatever system. Again, we want to be dedicated to life, living life in abundance, whatever it's going to take, for the glory of God, right?
True indeed.
Yeah.
But I do want to rewind something from that you said earlier in this thing. And it's funny because I've never actually heard this. And you said, hey, this you heard the saying. And I was like, no, I didn't. You got to believe in your own.
You have to believe in the medicine for it to work.
I get the concept. I get the philosophy. It makes a whole lot of sense. But how does somebody go from I'm super addicted and explain to me how you were able to believe?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's a real generic phrase, and it might not work in all cases, and I'm sorry. But I'm talking specifically about the 12-step fellowship. Like, if you go to a 12-step recovery meeting and you don't think it's going to work, guess what? It's probably not going to work. But if you and listen, if you don't believe, but you notice that going to a 12-step recovery meeting is the only thing that's helping your life be a little bit better, then go anyway.
Right.
Because I was forced to go to 12-step meetings in the rehabilitation facility I went to. And so they were just part of the life. You just had to go. But what happened, I didn't believe the medicine was going to work at first either. I thought, I'll do this stuff they tell me to do. And then when I get out of this program, maybe I'll be able to drink like a gentleman. Maybe I'll be able to shoot up like a gentleman. You just have to put your pinky out. That's how you do it. Wow. But the stories I heard convinced me that I can never safely drink or use. And that's not true for everybody, but for a lot of people like me, it is true. I need entire abstinence in my life because using is too much of a risk. I could lose it all. Could I keep it all? Maybe, but probably not. But
the value proposition for it is not worth it.
No,
right? Like, there is
exactly.
none.
And so that's believing in the medicine. That's what I'm talking about. Nice. The people in the 12-step fellowship shared their stories, and I could relate to their stories. And I became convinced that I can never safely drink or use. And, is that restrictive in a sense? Is that a type of slavery in a sense? Yeah, in the same sense that not jumping off a bridge is a type of slavery.
I want to jump.
We all want to jump, bro, some days. But, because I accept that type of restriction, I'm actually more free. Right. Because I accept that I need to be chained to my higher power, because I need to be dependent on my higher power, I'm actually more free to do more stuff.
Yeah, this is the same concept of discipline, guys. Bro. Thinking that discipline doesn't give you more freedom is asinine.
Totally.
Like, discipline in the areas that you need discipline in actually gives you all the freedom to do whatever it is that you really want to do.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Warren, for coming on and doing this. Oh man, this is awesome.
This is great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate you. And guys, again, if you know anybody that's struggling with addiction that you feel could have any sort of benefit or take anything from this, please, please, please tag them, share this, take it to everybody you know, and just show somebody, especially the little clips and pieces that we're going to be putting out there. You have no idea if it could change the trajectory of somebody's life. With that, adios. Love you more.